The storm came without warning that Tuesday evening. Michael Harper was locking up his small auto repair shop when the rain began. Heavy drops that quickly turned into sheets of water sweeping across the parking lot. He pulled his jacket tighter and was heading for his truck when he saw them, two young women, identical twins, huddled under the broken awning of the closed hardware store next door. They couldn't have been more than 22 or 23, with long blonde hair plastered to their faces by the rain. They wore matching red dresses that looked expensive but were completely unsuitable for the weather. Neither had a jacket, and they were shivering. Michael paused. He'd been a single father for 8 years now, ever since his wife left when their son Jake was just a baby. Those years had taught him to be cautious, to protect what little he had. But they'd also taught him that sometimes people genuinely needed help. "Were you two all right?" he called out. They turned to him, and he could see relief flood their faces. One of them spoke, her voice shaking from the cold. "Our car broke down about a mile back. We've been trying to get a signal on our phones, but nothing's working. We were looking for somewhere to wait, but everything's closed." Michael glanced at his watch. It was past 7 on a Tuesday evening in a small town where most businesses shut down by 6. The nearest hotel was 15 miles away, and in this storm, that might as well have been 100. "I could take a look at your car," he offered. "I'm a mechanic." "Where'd you leave it?" "On Route 47, near the old mill," the other twin said. "But honestly, in this weather, we just need somewhere warm and dry to wait it out. We already called a towing service, but they said it might be morning before they can get to us." Michael knew he should probably just point them toward town and wish them well. His little house was small. Jake would be there waiting for his dinner, and inviting two strangers home wasn't the smartest decision. But looking at them, shivering in those thin dresses, he thought about what he'd want someone to do if Jake was ever stranded somewhere in the rain. "Look, I have a son at home, so I need to be honest with you. My place is small, nothing fancy, but it's dry and warm. I can offer you a couch for the night, some hot food, and in the morning, I'll drive you to your car and see if I can fix it. But I understand if you'd rather find another option." The twins looked at each other, having one of those silent conversations identical siblings seem to share. Then they both nodded. "We'd be grateful," the first one said. "I'm Madison, and this is my sister Morgan." "Michael," he said. "Let's get you out of this rain." The drive to his house took 10 minutes. The twins sat quietly in the back of his truck, and Michael called ahead to let Jake know they'd have guests. His son, bless him, took it in stride. At 8 years old, Jake had inherited his father's steady temperament. The house was just as Michael had described it. Small, a bit worn around the edges, but clean and warm. Jake met them at the door, his dark hair sticking up the way it always did, his eyes curious but polite behind his glasses. "Hi," he said simply. "Dad said you got stuck in the storm." "We did," Madison said, smiling at him. "Thank you for sharing your home with us." Michael showed them where they could dry off and lent them some old sweatshirts that hung loose on their slender frames. They looked younger somehow, without the glamour of those red dresses, more vulnerable. When they emerged from the bathroom, he had soup warming on the stove and was setting out bread and cheese. "It's not much," he apologized. "I wasn't planning for company." "It's perfect," Morgan said, and she sounded like she meant it. Over dinner, the twins told their story carefully, leaving out more than they included. Michael suspected. They were on their way home from visiting a college friend. They said the car was a rental. They'd gotten lost taking a shortcut. Michael didn't press for details. People were entitled to their privacy, and besides, they'd be gone in the morning. What struck him was how kind they were to Jake. They asked about his school, his favorite subjects, his pet goldfish named Rocket. They didn't talk down to him or act bored by his 8-year-old enthusiasm. Madison helped him with a math problem he'd been struggling with. And Morgan made him laugh with a silly story about the time she and her sister accidentally wore each other's clothes to school and confused everyone. After Jake went to bed, Michael made coffee, and the three of them sat in his small living room. The storm continued outside, rain drumming against the windows, but inside, it was warm and peaceful. "You have a wonderful son," Madison said softly. "You're doing a great job raising him alone." "That can't be easy." Michael shrugged, feeling "You do what you have to do. He's a good kid. Makes it easier." "Not everyone would have stopped to help us tonight," Morgan added. "Especially not invited us into their home. That's rare these days. My mother used to say that we're all just walking each other home," Michael said. "Sometimes the path gets rocky, and we need someone to offer a hand. I was raised to be that person when I could." They talked for another hour about nothing in particular and everything that mattered. Small-town life and big city dreams, the books they'd loved as children, the way the world seemed to be moving faster than any of them could keep up with. Michael found himself relaxing in a way he rarely did with strangers. And the twins seemed to feel the same. When he finally showed them to Jake's room, Jake had insisted on sleeping on the couch, so the ladies could have proper beds, they thanked, and again, with a sincerity that made him slightly uncomfortable. Really? It's nothing, he said. Anyone would do the same. No, Madison said firmly. They really wouldn't. But you did. We won't forget that. Morning came, bright and clear. The storm washed away like it had never been. Michael woke early, as always, made breakfast, and found the twins already awake, sitting at his kitchen table, talking quietly with Jake about dinosaurs. After they ate, Michael drove them to their car, as promised. It was exactly where they'd said, a sleek rental sedan with a dead battery. He had it running in 20 minutes. You're a lifesaver, Morgan said, pressing money into his hand. He tried to refuse, but she insisted. Please, for your time and the trouble. What he didn't know until later was that Morgan had tucked $500 into his palm, far more than the work warranted. The twins drove away with waves and smiles, and Michael thought that would be the end of it. A strange, kind interlude in his ordinary life. 3 weeks later, a man in an expensive suit appeared at his shop. He was older, perhaps 60, with steel gray hair and the bearing of someone used to being listened to. Are you Michael Harper? He asked. I am. Can I help you? I'm Richard Montgomery, the man said, and he extended his hand. I believe you helped my daughters a few weeks ago, Madison and Morgan. Michael shook his hand, confused. I did. They were stuck in that storm. Is everything all right? Everything's fine, Richard said, and his voice was thick with emotion. Then fine. My daughters told me what you did. How you took them in when they were stranded, fed them, gave them a safe place to stay. You didn't know who they were. You didn't ask for anything. You just helped. It was the right thing to do. Michael said simply. Maybe so. But not everyone does the right thing. Richard looked around the small shop, taking in the modest tools, the organized but clearly aging equipment. My daughters told me you're raising a son, alone. That you're a good man working hard to provide for him. They were very impressed with both of you. Michael felt heat rising in his cheeks. They were very kind to Jake. He still talks about them. Richard smiled. I won't take up much of your time, Mr. Harper, but I want you to know that your kindness that night meant more than you realize. My daughters have grown up with privilege. They're used to people wanting something from them, being nice because of who their father is. You didn't know who I was? You just saw two people who needed help, and you gave it freely. He pulled out a business card and handed it to Michael. I own several automotive dealerships across 3 states. I'm always looking for good people, honest people, to manage them. If you're ever interested in a change, in expanding your opportunities for yourself and your son, I'd like to talk with you about it. Michael stared at the card, stunned. Mr. Montgomery, I don't know what to say. Don't say anything yet. Think about it. Talk it over with Jake. There's no pressure, no obligation. But the offer is genuine, and it's there whenever you're ready. Richard's expression sought me. My late wife used to tell our girls that character is what you do when nobody's watching, when there's no reward in sight. You showed character that night. In my experience, that's worth more than any resume. They shook hands again, and Richard left. Michael stood in his shop, holding the card, his mind reeling. He thought about that rainy night, about the choice he'd made without really thinking about it. He'd simply seen people who needed help and offered what he could. That evening, after Jake was in bed, Michael sat at his kitchen table and looked at the business card for a long time. He thought about his small shop, his small house, his small but carefully built life. He thought about opportunities and risks, about what his mother had taught him about kindness, about walking each other home. Whatever he decided about the job offer, one thing was certain. That night during the storm, he'd done exactly what his mother would have wanted him to do. He'd seen people in need and opened his door. He'd shared what little he had without counting the cost. And somehow, in ways he never could have imagined, that simple act of decency had opened doors he hadn't known existed. The rain had brought strangers to his doorstep. But perhaps, in the end, there were no strangers. Just people walking each other homes through the storms, some brief in passing, others that lasted a lifetime. And the ones who stopped to help along the way, who offered shelter and warmth without asking for anything in return, they were the ones who made the journey possible for everyone else. Michael picked up the phone to call his son. Whatever decision he made, they'd make it together. That's what family did. That's what mattered most.